Alright, so Elon Musk has officially been the CEO of Twitter for about like 5 seconds at this point, and already during that short duration, he has managed to turn this into a complete and utter shit show. So there's a number of different things that I want to get into here. First, just to start us off in terms of some of the major developments that have happened over the last couple of days. So here from Forbes, they say that advertisers are fleeing Twitter as they lay off nearly half of their workforce. Half of their workforce. Okay, so this is funny for so many different reasons, right? Maybe, I guess, if you're being extremely charitable, you could say, maybe, some of these jobs had a redundancy to them and Twitter was slightly bloated and he's trying to save costs on labor and stuff like that. Maybe, to some extent, but half of your workforce? Really? And the reason why it's hilarious is because almost immediately, I mean, literally a couple of days after he made that decision and threw all of these people out of their jobs, he had to turn around and ask them to please come back and work at Twitter because, of course, so many of these people were probably in the middle of working on projects. They are, part of some of the technology teams that need to just be there for the general functioning of this app, of this website, right? And I mean, on top of that, you also need employees who have experience working at Twitter or experience in those high up positions that they had to be able to do some of the different changes that you want to be implemented at Twitter. So this was just number one. He fires a bunch of employees, half the fucking workforce, immediately has to turn around and ask some of them to come back. On top of this, he's also going to be facing probably plenty of lawsuits from some of these fired Twitter employees because of the way that he decided to go about doing this and not giving them proper notice under California law, not proper notice to tell them that they were on track to be fired. And so he's probably, on top of having to go and beg and plead for some of them to come back, he's going to have to be dealing with a lot of those other lawsuits on the back end of that. And his response to this was this. So he tweeted out, Twitter has had a massive drop in revenue due to activist groups pressuring advertisers, even though nothing has changed with content moderation, and we did everything we could to appease the activists. Extremely messed up. They're trying to destroy free speech in America. Okay, so this is why this entire situation is amazing, and this is why in my last video covering this, I told you guys that there is no win here for Elon Musk. There is no way for him to go about managing this company in a way that is not either going to piss off the advertisers, causing a significant drop in revenue, which is exactly what he's done right now, and or pissing off a lot of the right-wing, conservative base that loves Elon Musk because he's backtracking on his, promises of being a free speech absolutist, right? So this is where you get this magnificent clash between him saying that he is a free speech absolutist and then also having to deal with the fact that he is the wealthiest man in the world, a billionaire, and that he has ownership now of a company that is driven by profits, okay? So he's not just willing to eat billions or millions of dollars in losses in order to create this like free speech utopia that he claimed that he wanted to do, which was part of the entire justification for why he bought Twitter in the first place. But now he's having to deal and grapple with the fact that you have to appease the advertisers. And what do the advertisers want? They don't want a platform where anybody can just say any crazy, wild, fucked up shit and use, hate speech and slurs and all of this other shit that is a part of like terms of service and content moderation. They don't want that type of environment and having their ads pop up between, some disgusting like white nationalist Nazi tweet and somebody saying the N-word below that. They just don't want that. That's not an environment that is conducive to advertisers, right? So this is his response to this, saying it is entirely activists to blame, and that it's these woke liberals and shit like that are pressuring these advertisers and they're pulling their ads. I mean, maybe to some extent they are facing pressure from activists, but this is capitalism, okay? This is like what you love so much. This is the free market where these companies are making profit-driven decisions that it might not be worth it to advertise on a platform that is being governed or run in the way that you have openly said that you want to run it. And so it gets even better because not only is he's blaming these activists, right? But just as a reminder, right? Okay, just over the last couple of days, what has he done? Okay, so we had this story, which I covered in my last video as well, where he just tweeted out some crazy, wild QAnon conspiracy theory directly in the aftermath of Paul Pelosi, the husband of Nancy Pelosi, getting his head smashed in by some, deranged conservative with a hammer, right? And he decides to go on his own platform where he is the CEO, the top dog at this, what he calls the public town square, right? And you're going and tweeting some deranged conspiracy nonsense, right? While simultaneously trying to say like, no, don't worry, we want this to be, I mean, he literally just tweeted the other day, we want this to be the single best source for accurate information and news in the world, okay? While you're going behind the scenes and doing this, I mean, do you think that maybe like this could have some degree of an influence in terms of why advertisers might not be, ready to accept your leadership at this company and the direction that you are taking it when you're going and tweeting out shit like this? I mean, again, why are you blaming the activists and the advertisers themselves when you should be blaming yourself and the chaotic nature of how you have been running this company? Which is another thing, is that like he's completely contradicting himself every other day. One day he says he wants it to be an accurate source of information, he wants to democratize it. The next day he's changing his mind on that and literally writing letters to advertisers about how nothing has changed. And then one day he's tweeting out these conspiracy theories, the next day he's going and saying that it's activist pressure that is ruining the company. He's all over the fucking map, and he doesn't even have a coherent roadmap in terms of where he wants to go for the future of this company. And so of course advertisers are going to pull back and say, well, what are you doing here? We don't know the direction. This is extremely volatile. It's not exactly the best place for us to be investing in our ad budget, right? But it gets even better, because it wasn't just the conspiracies that he was tweeting out. You also have shit like this. So he had a quote tweet response here from this guy named Mike Davis with 2 American flags on either side of his name here. And he was basically responding to that initial tweet that we just saw where Elon Musk was blaming the activist groups for pressuring advertisers. And he says, "Dear Elon Musk, you have nearly 114 million Twitter followers. Name and shame the advertisers who are succumbing to the advertiser boycotts so we can boycott them and get your $8 monthly subscription going," which is another thing I'm going to talk about in a second here, going ASAP, so we can start to make up for the lost revenue now. So there are so many things about this that are just absolutely amazing, but let's just read his response here first. He says, "Thank you. A thermonuclear name and shame is exactly what will happen if this continues." Okay, so you're complaining that the advertisers are fleeing the site because, they think it's volatile, and in your words, you think it's because of activist pressure. Don't you think that this also might have something to do with it? That advertisers might not be ready and willing to put ads on your site, as you are actively basically threatening them and saying, I'm going to go thermonuclear on your ass if you even think about pulling your ads from our website? I mean, really, like, this is who this guy is, right? He's like a 12-year-old who's just like spitballing and, negotiating with people on Twitter and saying all of this erratic shit, and then he turns around and he's wondering why advertisers think that it's a volatile situation that they shouldn't be spending money on. I mean, it's just completely ridiculous and laughable at face value for so many different reasons. But another part of this, which is just amazing, is this $8 monthly subscription. Okay, so we're going to circle back around to this here in a second, where we have a video of him describing how that process is going to work with the $8 monthly subscription. It's going to be a complete flop, okay, for a lot of different reasons, but we'll get to that here in a second. First, he had another tweet, which is just, this is feeding into this idea that I'm trying to get you guys to understand in terms of how completely erratic his decision-making surrounding Twitter policies and content moderation and all of that has been over the last couple of days. So he tweeted this out. He says, "Going forward, any Twitter handles engaging in impersonation without clearly specifying parody will be permanently suspended." So number one, you're already contradicting yourself from a couple months ago when you said you wanted to completely do away with the permanent suspensions, right? But on top of that, what he's referring to here is that a bunch of people used the fact that, he was bringing out this new verification badge and starting to roll out new policies in regards to that, and they were just changing their handle. This is, what you see right here. You can't change the actual name that's below it, right? So if you wanted to verify that this is the real Elon Musk, you could see that his tag is at Elon Musk, but a lot of people were changing this, the actual name that shows up next to the check mark, right? And changing it to Elon Musk and setting their profile picture as Elon's profile picture, and then just tweeting like, honestly, some hilarious shit out. I mean, I don't see any that are directly in the replies here, but just go look them up. I mean, there were so many that were kind of funny, honestly, but then he turns around and he starts going back on his own policy that is outlined here, right? So he says, "Previously, we issued a warning before suspension, but now we are rolling out widespread verification. There will be no warning. This will be clearly identified as a condition for signing up for Twitter Blue," which is what he's calling his new thing. "Any name change at all will cause temporary loss of verified checkmark." Okay, so wait, any name change at all will cause temporary loss of verified checkmark. What does that mean? So if I wanted to change my name on Twitter, which for me, it just shows up as Mac, and I wanted to change that to Macaulay or Good Politic Guy or something, I'm going to lose my verification badge badge temporarily because of that. And then on top of this, I mean, this is how he governs this site, right? He's basically just doing this specifically because people were impersonating him. It's not like the impersonation with the check marks was like some widespread problem before. It's people who were impersonating and making fun of him and making him look bad. So it's just like a personal thing that he's doing here, where he's just making the policies of Twitter center around what is personally affecting him at any given moment, and then just deciding to do that on a whim. But not only is he unrolling this new rule, basically, where you can't do impersonations, which I don't even necessarily have a problem with, because that's kind of like the whole point of having a verification badge in the first place, is so that people know, okay, the name that is beside this verification badge, that is who they actually say they are, right? I don't even necessarily disagree with that, but he then immediately went after a bunch of people who clearly were using this as a parody, right? He says here, you know, unless you clearly specify that you are a parody account, you're going to get banned. Well, then he turns around, he banned like, you know, dozens of different accounts that were doing this, and this is just one example. But I mean, you had this guy who was saying Elon Musk parody and has a verification checkmark. He gets banned. So it's like, what is the actual rule here? What is the policy here? Is it actually, you know, whether or not you're clearly identifying yourself as a parody account, or is it actually just what you're saying about Elon Musk and whether or not you're offending him on any given day? I mean, this is how he is legitimately choosing to run this site. He had another amazing tweet here just a couple days ago, or I guess yesterday, November 6th. He said, widespread verification will democratize journalism and empower the voice of the people. Okay, so just in straight face value reading of this tweet, I wouldn't even necessarily disagree with that, right? Widespread verification, where you could have a system where, like, you know, I don't know, if you confirm that you are who you say you are on your account and you're using your real name and information and profile picture, right? Knowing who people are, that is a valuable thing, right? Being able to verify, you know, that the people are who they are labeling themselves as are actually who they are, right? That's not even necessarily a bad thing. But here's where it gets hilarious, is because he's saying widespread verification as a part of this new Twitter Blue, which he's about to be unrolling after the election. He actually just decided to delay it because he knew it was going to be a chaotic rollout. But widespread verification will democratize journalism and empower the voice of the people. Okay, so why is this hilarious? Well, because we have this clip right here, and I just want to play through a little bit of this where he explains how this Twitter Blue verification policy or whatever is actually going to work. It is a direct contradiction to the notion of, number one, free speech, and number two, you know, this claim that he is doing this Twitter Blue $8 per month service as an effort to democratize free speech or to democratize journalism and the Twitter platform, directly contradicting that. So let's go ahead and watch a little bit of this clip, which is from just a couple days ago, a recent interview that he did.
Part of what I'm trying to achieve with this sort of enabling everyone to be payment verified with Twitter Blue is to try to get as many people payment verified as possible. It's only $8 a month, although for some people that were complaining about that, and these are people who pay more than that for their latte.
I'm going to be one of your Twitter Blue customers.
Thank you. But like it's part of its revenue, part of it is payment authentication, and so if somebody because there is a huge problem with spam and bots and trolls on Twitter, and organizations trying to manipulate public opinion. But if we can get enough verified users, and we're going to prioritize Twitter search, replies, mentions by verified users first. And yeah, this is very, if you're payment verified with blue checkmark, then you're prioritized, and hateful conduct pays. But if somebody risks losing even $8, the net effect will be over time that the verified users will pretty much always be at the top of comments and search, and you won't really see, you'll have to scroll far to see the unverified users, which will be the bots and
Okay, so, I mean, there you go. Again, he is directly contradicting the notion that this $8 per month subscription, which, let's be honest, who the fuck is going to pay $8 a month to just get a little blue check mark that has no, like, underlying legitimate value? But here's what he's saying, right? He's contradicting this notion that this is, you know, intended to, as he said, democratize journalism and empower the voice of the people. Last time I checked, democratization and empowering the voice of average people doesn't require paying a fucking subscription subscription fee. And not only do you have to pay the subscription fee, but if you choose not to, then he's essentially saying you are going to be algorithmically suppressed, and that everybody who is paying this fee, their replies, their mentions, their tweets, their search results are going to come up first. So you're not democratizing anything. If anything, in this situation, you are making it more stratified. You are making it more of a hierarchical system here, where somebody who can't afford an $8 per month subscription for Twitter is going to be suppressed, and they're not going to be able to get their voice out to the same extent as somebody who does have that money in order to be able to afford it. So, I mean, again, this is what I'm talking about, where his rhetoric and his actions and his policies completely change every single day on a whim, and they're wildly inconsistent with what he says his own goals are, right? I mean, again, this gets down to the fundamental problem that we all knew that Elon Musk was going to have when he bought Twitter, and that is that we have decided to operate what Elon Musk himself calls the public town square, which is a label that I agree with, right? Because this is where people are communicating, sharing information, talking about politics and all these other subjects, right? This is the public town square, but the problem here is that you have a profit-driven incentive for the direction of this company, right? That is the core root of the problem here. And so anybody who thought that the richest man in the world, that somebody who dumped like 40 billion some odd dollars into this, that he was just going to be willing to give that up and not use this as a profit-seeking venture, I'm sorry, but you got duped by one of the most, successful but also obvious con men in the history of the world. Okay, this guy was never going to be the free speech absolutist. Okay, he cares about that ad revenue. He cares about making this a profitable investment for himself, which, like, good luck, because we've talked about all of the other financial situations he's gotten himself into that are going to be catastrophic for him individually and for the company long term. But on top of this, I mean, the main point that I'll make is this: the problem here isn't even necessarily that Elon Musk is making X bad decision or, coming up with these bizarre policy ideas for Twitter. That's not even necessarily the main problem here, right? Some of the things that he's been proposing, I actually kind of agree with, and I think could make the site somewhat better, right? Obviously not the verification thing that he's trying to do and making it a monthly subscription, but the real underlying problem with this entire situation is that we have a society where somebody can amass enough personal wealth and fortune to be able to go buy what they themselves call the public town square, right? I mean, the problem here isn't even necessarily that it's specifically Elon Musk. It's about the profit incentive. It's about the structure of how we have organized our society and our economy, where some guy can just waltz on in, buy something which has like incredible amounts of influence in the future of politics and the future of this country and everyday people's lives, right? That he can just waltz in and buy this and then just pick and choose whatever he wants to do on a whim with no democratic check whatsoever. That's the problem here. The problem is that we even have billionaires like him in the first place. Okay, so I mean, that's where I'll leave this, because it's obviously hilarious to get into all of the different shenanigans that he's putting on himself, and the advertisers are fleeing, and he's dealing with all of these right-wing hogs who are now mad at him because he hasn't brought Trump on, or he's not letting their Nazi friends do their thing on Twitter or something like that. You have all of these conflicting things that are sort of giving into the idea that he is going to implode this site and implode $40 billion for himself. But at the end of the day, again, the problem here is the profit incentive. The problem here is that we are not treating the public town square as an actual public town square. We are treating it as if it should just be some investment vehicle for the wealthiest man in the world to just do whatever the fuck he wants.
Everyone is saying good Politic guy has the best Politic. Believe me, no one does it like him. Believe me, everyone is saying